In Tibet, the Buddhism came into existence as a religious class, somewhat similar to any of the Orthodox religions. And so at that time, before what we know in Tibet and the areas, there was this pre-shamanistic religion called Bon. And there's some connection with Padmasambhava, who was basically a tantric mystic / some kind of exorcist that came from the Afghanistan region, bringing this kind of something tantra or shamanism or tantric shamanism or something. And they called him in because the Buddhists took over the area. The king was being taunted by these virtues, these aspects. I'm forgetting their name. The wrathful deities of that area were causing havoc on these Buddhists, and they called him Padmasambhava. And Padmasambhava came with what's called the forba, which is a dagger. And he bound them to the Dharma, to the Buddhism.
Dagger?
With forbas, just like Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I see.
Okay? It's a kind of working.
Right.
A lot of shamans, a lot of traditions use swords for binding, or sometimes you can take a demonic energy from a being and bind it or destroy it through that ritual. So that's a common shamanistic archetype that finds its way into many traditions. People who use daggers or knives, etc., to do sort of exorcism work. That's the esoteric meaning of it. But then there's, of course, the Buddhist understanding in the common world. It's just like, there's like these this pre-Buddhistic Bon religion. They don't necessarily see it as like a free shamanism, kind of mystical shamanic practice. So in Nepal, there's a tradition called the Bombos, and they're the Tamang Bombos or Bompos. And the problem in Nepal is that there's like 25 different sects of people. So you can, if you're sick, you go to a physician or an Ayurvedic doctor or an astrologer or a lama, right? Or like go to church-ish in the form of Buddhist temple, or you consult the village crazy, or you go to the shaman. Okay. And depending on like your
that's a lot of options.
Folk belief, in that matrix, you get to the point where they're like, okay, we'll see a shaman. So there's a Tibetan bombo you go see, and he shakes, he drums. That's the drum that I have, and it's got a forba on the bottom. And there's serpents up the forba. And there's all these, so there's not many of them known, and they don't really speak English very much. But the 12 grandmothers, 12 indigenous grandmothers, Ama Bombo is one of them. And she does this really profound tiger work. Basically, she becomes a tiger. And she takes a bone and she sucks poisons out of people and spits out blood.
Wow. And
like gets into it and like tiger takes it out of people. And that's a really interesting thing, which is very in the 13 indigenous grandmothers, 12, 13, I forget, she is the one who speaks the least, and there's least known about her practices. So she is at least in Nepali culture, she's gotten out there. But then there's only Larry G. Peters is this guy I found searching for this stuff, and he does these journeys to some of the shamans out there, and he wrote a book. He's basically the anthropologist for this culture, and he also tried to learn how to shake, and they were trying to teach him, and he really felt like he couldn't do it and all this stuff. So he, I think he got there or something or whatever. So he has a drumming CD of that drum, that kind of traditional drum. and they wear bells, cross bells around themselves, and they shake, you know, and they're just like making all this noise, and they get to this huge crescendo, and they just drop, and they're just
really?
you know, and they get up, and sometimes it's like a spirit speaking through that, like, you know, they just like blank out, and some other energy comes in, and it's varied millions or billions of versions of what you can tap into, it seems, and so that's really my favorite shamanic cultural tradition. And Christian Retsch, who wrote this book called Shamanism and Tantra in the Himalayas, he's really amazing, from Germany. He spent time in that area too, so he has another angle. So he does a big book about them too, and he tried to document the plants, you know, which plants they're working with, and you know, so that's what's been done with that culture. But it's really beautiful.